Hi, Reality Riffing. I am really thrilled to bring you a panel discussion that we had during Rama Festival Summer Solstice about the prison industrial complex. This is a piece of the puzzle around systemic racism and oppression that I think isn't being talked about enough. And I got to sit down with three incredible people. Lazuli Witt, who is on the legal side of this and has spent her career working to get people who, mostly young men, who are either wrongly incarcerated or other kind of foul play in their incarceration, helping to get them legal representation. Ricky Kidd is an amazing activist who actually just was exonerated after 23 years in prison. He has an incredible story and is doing powerful work in the world. And then my friend Coss Marte, who has something called ConBody, which is right by Rama, New York, and we got introduced because of his work that he's doing at Rikers and just what happened to him inside prison and what his whole journey with getting healthy mentally and physically, and then giving back and creating this modality called ConBody. So we all sit down and talk about some of the intricacies and complexities of what's happening underneath not just the kind of external aspects of the systemic racism, but how it's built in to our judicial system and what we can do about it. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I'm here on this amazing conversation with these amazing human beings. I want to introduce Ricky Kidd to you. Ricky, I found you on TikTok, and just so really my heart just bursting with your message of 23 years of being wrongfully convicted, and you somewhat recently are out of prison and now are really using your platform, which is growing rapidly, to talk about these issues and turn this negative into positive. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And Coss, who I was just talking to.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ricky. And Coss, who we were just chatting, we both have a studios in the Lower East Side. Coss was sent to jail as a ringleader of a multi-million-dollar cocaine operation. And then while he was in prison, started to find a deeper sense of wellness and created this kind of these modalities to get in shape. You lost 70 pounds, Coss, and then with the rest of the inmates that you started teaching this to, it was something, I think you told me something like 1,000 pounds was lost mutually. Am I right about this?
Yeah, over 1,000 pounds with about 23 guys.
So cool. Welcome, Coss. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Lazuli Witt, many of you know Lazuli from her participation in our community, but Lazuli is also an incredible lawyer and has practiced post-conviction law in California for almost 20 years, working with numerous criminal convictions based on innocence or constitutional error. Lazuli, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Glad that you're all here. So I think we can just jump right in because this to me is such an important conversation, and you all have different perspectives. But I would love to just kind of talk about where you think we are right now in terms of what's happening currently in the prison industrial complex, and if you feel like anything's changing from some of the Black Lives Matter movement, what's kind of current events from your perspectives. Curious what you guys are kind of picking up on, and anybody can jump in.
Everyone's listening. Everybody saw what happened to George Floyd, and I think people want to help in some sort of way. Some people don't understand how to help. And so I feel like people need some type of direction. There's a whole bunch of organizations that have been doing this for a very long time. And I feel like we need to redirect people. There has been a lot of changes in the system. I feel like when I was in there over 10 years ago, it was not there weren't any programs inside the system, at least in New York State, and nobody really cared about anybody inside. We didn't have anybody that was going in from the outside saying we want to bring these positive programs in. As long like I've been in maybe 9 prisons in New York State and jails, and nobody really came and gave a damn. You know what I mean? I was going to say but I want to respect my language. But
we like to cuss around here. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah. Nobody gave a fuck before.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the real deal. I feel like now we have so many people that's going inside, understanding what the issues are, the cleanliness. Even through COVID, I partnered up with another organization called Blue Foundry, where we're sewing masks for the inmates in Rikers Island. And we've seen that racial disparity between the system, where people saying, oh, it's not a real racist system. People don't really understand it. People don't know the racial biases that they have already inside. And I feel like people need to sit back and understand and feel empathy, and really understand what the system is about. It was built it's not a broken system. It was built a certain way to deal with certain people. And it's just a messed up system. It's not a broken system. We just need to reconstruct the whole system.
Yeah. That's a great point, because I think that language is used, but ultimately the system was built from the get-go a very specific way, which I would love for at any point, if anybody feels like kind of breaking down some of the just basics of the prison industrial complex, for those who are kind of just getting a sense of what this actually for-profit kind of structure is like. Ricky, I'm sure you have some things on this, and as well as Lazuli. So, please, you're welcome to jump in.
Sure. Leslie can go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I think is really interesting about what's happening currently is there's a call to all people, but there's a specific call to white people to really look at how institutional racism is pervasive in basically our whole entire system in this country. And so with the prison system, I mean, you can go back and look at it's basically a sort of continuum from enslaving African Americans to lynchings to segregation and Jim Crow, to then we get into the civil rights movement and a reaction to the civil rights movement, which involves a lot of criminalizing of protesters, and also at the same time sort of over policing Black and brown communities, which essentially replaces slavery, which used to be a free economic source of labor, to overcharging and criminalizing and incarcerating young men, which created a whole nother sort of system of labor. And in fact, the prison industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I believe it was $80 billion was spent in the last few years, and those statistics might not be quite accurate today, but it's something outrageous like that. And it had been just 20 years before something like 8 billion. So it's like a huge money-making system.
Yep.
And in it is built in racism and white supremacy. And so there's so much more to say about that. And I'm sure Ricky will have more to add. But there's a lot of ways to educate yourself, including amazing books. And, there's a few great documentaries like True Justice and 13th. But
Yeah. I think something, and we can kind of go on this. Go ahead, Ricky.
It's I just wanted to add on to what you were saying, that it's a system that also cheats. It is a cheating system. It is a cheating system on many levels. It is a cheating system that was always meant to cheat. Very often they cheat and it's not found out because they've learned how to cheat well. On occasion, their team is exposed. Just like myself, is then able to return home. Particularly in my case, the prosecutor cheated. She knew all along who actually committed the crime. She buried that evidence. I was black. I was poor. There was no way that she suspected that I will find out that she actually cheated. It was only until Innocence Project and great lawyers came on board later that we was able to go in and discover her cheat. They also cheat when they public defender systems opposed to, or rather put public defender systems against prosecutor systems or prosecutor offices. They're both funded by the state. One public defender system receives $300 per case to represent a case, while the prosecutor's office receives $3,000 per case. That's cheating. This side only has this much to work with. This side has that much to work with. That is a form of cheating. And so they cheat, and they learn how to do it so well where we, the everyday people, first of all, we're not aware of it.
Right.
Second of all, there is no way to fully discover. And I just believe that we absolutely have to go in and dismantle our system and then build it back up the way we think it works, or the way intelligent minds have come together and believe the system should look moving forward. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And I think that there's a lot, and I don't know all of it, but I think that there's a lot around this cheating in terms of how the system has been rigged, in terms of, both rigged in the system and then rigged kind of underneath the table of who's getting paid, by different kind of conglomerates and dirty judges and dirty prosecutors and prison warrens. I mean, the list just kind of goes on in terms of all of the money that's being put in people's pockets and how they've profited off of this business for going on, I don't know, hundreds of years. Any thought on that from you guys in terms of educating the people who are listening?
Yeah, I believe everything started. There were slaves. There were people picking their cotton. People stopped picking the cotton because they got liberated. So how do these slave owners pick their own cotton? They don't want to go out there and work. We reincarcerate the same people that was picking the cotton again and send them back out. And so that's modern day slavery. Right. And that's how the whole system was built in incarcerating individuals. Like myself, when I was incarcerated, I was working for the Department of Motor Vehicles for 7 cents an hour as a customer service agent. So if you're in New York State and you have a problem with your license and you're calling, you might get an inmate on the phone, or you might get a representative that's making $20 an hour on the outside. But I was getting paid 7 cents an hour. So it's just a monetized system. Why pay somebody outside in the street $20 when an inmate could do it inside for 7 cents an hour? And that's just a small example. There's Victoria's Secret panties that are making anything that's saying made in USA. It's probably being made in a prison system, which is sad and it's crazy. And that's how, modern day slavery, we say, exists. And there's where the 13th Amendment began after slavery was abolished. So just a little bit of a history for those who don't really understand where everything has been brought up, and primarily, targeted individuals who are black and brown to work in these systems.
Yeah. I mean, the list of companies that are using prison labor is kind of mind-blowing. And I really suggest everyone Google it and educate yourself on the list of companies that are using prison labor to make their products or do these different kinds of things.
And I don't think it's wrong to have some type of prison labor, but why not pay a wage, like right. a living wage? What am I going to do with 7 cents? I need, it costs 30 cents to buy we call it a crackhead soup in prison, a ramen noodle soup. And that takes a month to pay for one soup, so it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that when something like prisons are for profit, and there's such a huge industry, well, then there's an incentive to overcharge and incarcerate more people for longer time. And so it isn't really about whether the time fits the crime or whatever. It is about making money. And when we're talking about human beings and their lives, that's just, it just shouldn't be. And so I agree that it's not a broken system. It was very specifically made to perpetrate these inequalities and make money for the powerful. And that system just needs to be completely redone.
Ricky, what was your experience with this?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I myself was clearly wrongfully convicted and then thrust into this prison industrial complex that we're talking about. And the same thing that Coss is saying, then I have to go to work. And I have to go to work $7.50 a month. They want 6 hours a day mandatory from me. And for that, they're going to give me $7.50. And so that was injury added to insult, or insult to injury, however you want to that. Here it is. I'm sitting in prison for a crime that I absolutely did not commit. You cheated to get me there. You withheld key evidence. And then once I get there, you instate all over again. And it really is designed to be a warehouse as well. They just want to work you and then pretty much send you back to your unit or your cell, and then you can rest, or you can play a couple table games. It's almost like the same aspect of slavery, where they didn't want us to read, they didn't want us to educate ourselves. So sometimes people say, oh, they got cable TV, they got 100 channels. But that's by design, in my opinion. And I was there almost a quarter century. It really is designed to numb the mind from educating, from expiring to be anything greater than a number. And then we're going to get this labor out of you, and then we're going to cut you free 20, 25 years later. And then, so therefore not equipped with any real skill set. You're going to exactly go out there another time and get you again. And we're just going to keep that cycle going. And so it is vicious. It is true. It is accurate as what the panel is depicting or sharing today. It is 100% accurate. And one of our first layers, or one of our first phases to dismantling our justice system, is to have an educated conversation about it first. This is orientation, so to speak, where people first learn about the system, and then phase 2, 3, and 4 is how we begin to bust that system or break that system down.
Yes, thank you. And so I am curious. I know, Coss, we talked about a little bit of things happening at Rikers, like when you came back in to help do some programs for the inmates, and just kind of the stuff that we're up against around prison reform and justice reform. Curious from all of you, what do you think phase 2 is? Okay, so we're having these conversations and people are focused on this. What's our next step?
So I think I'm going to piggyback what Ricky was talking about, bringing some education systems, educating these individuals inside, knowing and building them with the skills that they need when they re-enter society. And also, we need to change the collateral consequences that one faces when they come out. We are, not a lot of people know this, but we're facing over 40,000 collateral consequences. Basic human rights. So when I started ConBody, so I hired people coming out of the prison system to work at my gym, and 95% of the people that work here are formerly incarcerated individuals. So the problem was, when I started the company, I couldn't get business insurance as somebody that was a former inmate, and that was the law. My business insurance quota was $30,000 a month to just get started as a formerly incarcerated person. I actually got the opportunity to speak to Governor Cuomo's office. They had no idea, but these are old bylaws that we don't even understand, and it needs to be dismantled. Over 40,000 collateral consequences that no one knows. And as a kid, I went into the system at 13, 15. I went in and out of jail 9 times. Did over 6 years in the prison system. So I didn't know when I stepped up to that judge and I said, I'm pleading guilty, and the lawyer, the legal aid is telling me, yes, plead guilty. They'll give you 6 months in Rikers Island, 5 years of probation, and you'll be okay. I had no idea that when I said I'm guilty, that I was pleading guilty to over 40,000 collateral consequences that I was going to face for the rest of my life, even voting, and there are, I think, 23 states that still don't allow voting for people that are coming out of the prison system. So restricting that power from people that get incarcerated is just it's insane. And I think that's where we need to look at those 40,000 collateral consequences, even educating these individuals that are growing up, listening to the individuals that are going in and sharing their stories, amplifying their stories. Most of the time when someone locks some kid up who's 16, who's, let's say they were looting in the Louis Vuitton store, they just got caught. Now they're given 10 years in the system. They had no idea, they have no education of what they're really going into, what they're pleading guilty to. Like now, the rest of their life is destroyed because they just did one issue. I think that person needs to be heard, listen to their story. Why did that person go inside that store and steal? Maybe they didn't have anything else. They had no, the stimulus package didn't work for them. PPP program is not available for people that came out of the prison. So as for myself, the PPP program, as a formerly incarcerated person that owns a business, we do not qualify for the program. Wow. People are not really talking about this and amplifying these stories, which is crazy. Wow. And so many restrictions that I had no idea that I was going to be facing as a 16-year-old kid who's seeing a judge for the first time. The legal aid is telling me plead guilty to a felony. Now that felony turns into multiple felonies, and then my whole life is over, and that's where we need to dismantle the system.
Wow. Thank you. that is just so important. Yeah. I mean, I knew some of those things, but 40,000. Yeah, Ricky.
Yeah, thank you. I would add that what Coss is saying, also having the ability to hold individuals accountable when you don't know what the deal, what's included in the deal, then they'll trim that. So if 10 come in the deal and you only know 6, your politicians or your elected officials is going to hold those. So really the first part, of course, is educating and understanding what the situation is, and then what our expectations are of you. So you want to be our next elected official. Okay, we're going to be clear about what our expectations are. And then we're going to expect you to go in there and then carry those out. Holding them first, having that conversation with individuals, but we have to raise our level of awareness, and then holding them accountable. But also, first of all, just there be steps to phase 2. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 4, and then in phase 1 it may be 6 things. In phase 2 there may be 6 or 7 things. But also is infiltrating the system. I think infiltrating the system is important as well. Going inside and doing it ourselves. Replacing the officials. We can't, some of us are really, we talk about a police chief, but somebody needs to go in there and become the police chief. We talk about our district attorneys, but somebody has to go in there and become that district attorney, and then let all the ADAs know that we're not having this anymore. And so we can't just protest. That is important. That is our constitutional right. I love to see it. I absolutely love to see it. Yeah. But then we have to move from protest to policy, from policy to participation. We really have to participate, and a lot of people haven't figured that out yet because we dislike the system so much. Where I don't want to be a cop, I don't want to be a district attorney, I don't want to be an attorney general. Well, when you say that, you leave the crooked ones in there, and then they continue to perpetuate exactly what we don't like to see. So we have to get in there. We have to get more people in there. And even if we don't want to get in there ourselves, we have to find individuals who we want to put or who we want to see in there, and then get those individuals in as well. I think that is a part of what it looks like. I've already began working on phase 2. I've only been home 10 months, but I've already been working on phase 1, educating and raising awareness. And then phase 2, I don't want to go in myself, but I'm courting people who I think should go there, and then talking with voters in our community about getting behind this person, and then let's put this person in and be our voice. So those are some of the things I think we can do, among many, but those are some of the things I think we can do.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that it's so important to bridge protest into policy and participation, because this is, and you know, this is something, if you watch, we'll call it, you know, anybody who's held power or some sort of elite kind of, whether it's socioeconomic or race or otherwise, they understand that you have to, you know, you got to play the political game. So that's the whole kind of thing. You have to play the political game. You get behind certain politicians, but everybody has to understand that now we the people have to do the same thing, because that's part of restructuring these leadership roles, which we need new leaders and we need people to step up. I'm with you so much. Lazuli, what's your experience on the legal side of this?
Well, I think that it really does relate to educating and people taking ownership over their own education around things, because we've had several laws here in California, one of which would have abolished the death penalty. And that law makes sense on so many levels. But a separate law was put forward which would expedite the death penalty, and that law ended up winning. And so that legislation won and became law. And so I think that so much of that was actually a lack of education, because the law doesn't even really make sense, but it touches into people's fear, which is just, once fear gets involved, people, it's very hard. They want to be tough on crime. They sort of stop thinking logically about things, and they let that panic rise up. And that's used by the oppressive system, wants people to be in fear. And so I think it's education. I think it's moving legislation. I mean, there is some good legislation out there, but it isn't getting anywhere. I do see, I mean, I'm also hopeful in some ways. It's a big system, which makes it clunky and difficult to change, I think. But in California, where there's a new push to look at peremptory challenges and how those are used, race-based. They're a form of removing blacks from juries. And now the idea may be that we do away with peremptory challenges. We don't have those because they're not being used fairly by prosecutors. So I see some positive movement, but I do think there's a lot to do. And I think that Ricky and Coss are on to those foundational moves that we need to make.
Thank you. So I would love to just kind of go into maybe some other pieces of this that both you, Coss, Ricky, Lazuli, you've experienced in different kind of aspects of working inside this this system, that people would be surprised, or they wouldn't understand, or they might not know in terms of who's profiting, how they're profiting, and how that affects the actual kind of outcome of the prison industrial complex. Anything that kind of stands out to you that you feel like people really need to know in terms of starting to kind of get inside of this structure?
So basically, the private prison system works where they have these prisons, and you'll see them as somebody that was locked up. You'll see they building bunk beds, and then they're building triple bunk beds to stack up more people. So these privatized prisons keep stacking up more people because they get more funding, and they get more funding because they're living in a rural area. So every person in that prison is being counted for anybody that's living 20 minutes away from the Buffalo, Canadian border, where there's only 1,000 people in that population. But the more population that you have, the more funding you get. And so these prisons are in these locations. The more you fill these prisons up, you have a larger count of individuals that need funding for that area. So it's just a crazy system. They lock up more people to get more money, and it's just, that's how they monetize off of it. Whether it's building these companies that are doing things like that, or it's just crazy. But that's how it works.
Yeah, I would like to add behind that, there's this notion that the community is safe. When you take people who commit crime out of the community and put them in prison, that you, the community, is safe. But statistics doesn't suggest that. You can go on different websites, federal governor's website, and you can see that the numbers remain steady, even though, as far as safety and crimes, from robbery to rapes to homicides to theft to auto theft, you see that there may be a dip in some years, but it's not a direct correlation to the fact that these individuals went to prison. So there's this false notion that when somebody commits a crime, they go to prison and they're safe, the community is safe. The reality is they're not, because not addressing the underlying issue. Somebody replaces Roger. When Roger goes to prison, we got Roger, didn't we? But Roger is replaced with little Robert. Because we're not dealing with systemic issues within our community that breeds crime or criminal thinking, until you are able to address that, send 10 people to prison today, and then 10 is replace them in the next 10 minutes, unless you address what is happening at the root of our communities. In fact, when you send the 10 Roberts to prison, the 10 Rogers who are younger, they're more fierce, they're more angry. They actually act out a little more dangerous in some aspects than the Rogers that you sent to prison. So I don't think, Guru Jagat, that people know that. I don't think that they really understand that the argument not as safe as we like to believe is a farce. It is a false narrative, placebo, that we continue to take, and we seem to enjoy taking time after time.
Thank you. That is just incredibly powerful, both of you. I think just to also reiterate that, again, this may be, you do know this, but I just want to make sure that we make the point that Coss said the private prisons, the prison system is privatized, and it is because of that there are all of these kind of kickbacks and loopholes and all sorts of corroborations between local and state and federal government with these privately owned prison businesses. I think that's a very important point, and wondering, if there's anything else we need to kind of touch on for people to get that point.
The only thing I would add is that when we're talking about incarcerating more people, often what that means is incarcerating more people for minor crimes and giving them longer time. And a lot of them are nonviolent. So you're basically taking people who may need help in some other area, and you're incarcerating them, and as Coss pointed out, and then you're ruining the rest of their life. And there's a lot of young kids that are being charged as adults. I mean, watching a 15 or 16-year-old young boy be charged as an adult and sent to adult prison for the rest of his life is something that I can't believe that people really understand what that means, because they wouldn't tolerate it.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything on the privatized prison business that would be important to kind of notate?
So I went into, I forgot, it's the convention. They do this once a year. It's a convention center where they bring almost every warden from every prison from all around the country. I went about 3 years ago in New Orleans, and they put us in the convention center. And I went in there to speak about prison reform, my experience, but there was more talk about selling more secure chairs, electrical batons. I'm going through this like big convention marketplace center where they have these like electrical chairs they're selling, and they're selling it with a smile. These new, we have these new mattresses that, you know, the inmates won't have any comfortability in sleeping, and they have plastic in it, and they feel like balloons, so they won't be hiding anything in their mattresses. It's a sickening, and these are other private companies that are selling to the prison wardens that are walking down the floor. And they're looking at me, and one stopped me and said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from New York. Oh, so Rikers Island needs this. You know, and they showed me this, they had this actual paddy wagon where it's smaller than like 2 feet apart, where you can stick now more people because they have another level in the truck. It's just, it's sickening. And they're selling this with a smile. And these are other private companies that people don't really know about that are really profiting off of the prison system.
Wow. So it's like a trade show.
It's a trade show, exactly.
Wow.
Happening here. It's insane.
Wow. Ricky, anything to say before we move on around
Yeah.
this?
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. And so while I don't have a lot of experience, I usually like to speak from experience, but I am aware that there is a lot to be gained. They put these prisons in rural areas where there is no finance flowing through. These people are living in poverty, and so it's a way for these dilapidated communities, or these communities that are experiencing severe poverty, to have some type of wage. I don't even want to call it a living wage, because it's not. But so that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is really what Coss is saying. Even on a state level, where the prisons are not private, but they still run with the same type of mentality, where you're talking about trash bags, you're talking about trash cans, you're talking about beds, you're talking about any clothes, you're talking about a new system called JPay. JPay came online here in the States maybe 5 years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, but it's huge. It's big business. I was buying music inside prison just 10 months ago for $2-3 a song. Now I pay $11.99 a month out here, and I get all those songs for free. So examples of why prisons make so much money. And then there's kickbacks. There's kickbacks to the state. Our phone system here in the state of Missouri used to be 10 cents a minute. And of course, in different states, it's different cents amounts. But there was significant reporting years ago showing in a more substantive way that the states were getting kickbacks from the phone companies, from us using the phones. And so no matter how you look at it, I'm not suggesting that individuals should not be held accountable. Right. I am personally not suggesting that. But what I am saying is that it is driven beyond that. And people people should be held accountable. True. First of all, in proper measure. But it really doesn't seem like that's what it's about. It is driven beyond that. It's the smoke and mirrors Guru Jagat. It's the smoke and mirrors that the American people, or the people really all across this country, is believing that a system is working, and it's really not working for them. It's working for the people who have bought into the system, who has invested in the system, and they are receiving big ROI for the system. That's the truth of it. We really got to begin to do more reporting on that, and on that, sound the alarms more on that, and get people to say, you know what, that's not what we want to be the driving force. But right now, that is the secret driving force, and it's being mimicked and played with like it's really about being tough on crime and holding individuals. It's not the case. You're talking to somebody who's done 10 years Coss in the corner, somebody up top who's done this for over 20 years as a lawyer, and a person who wrongfully spent almost a quarter of a century. And so you're really talking about experience. You're talking about 25, over 50 years, over 55 years of experience on this panel alone when we're talking about the prison industrial complex.
Yeah. So thank you so much. This is just so important and riveting. Every one of the things that you guys are saying, I'm just encouraging everyone who's listening, Google this stuff, educate yourself, start to understand the local, we have an international audience. I think that the prison industrial complex is existing in every single country in different ways, because there's different kind of legislation around it, and maybe not as severe, but this is on planet Earth, and so really important for everything that has been said. You could take and kind of go down the rabbit hole and learn more about. I have a question for Ricky and Coss, and I think Lazuli, you probably would echo me on this question, which is just, there's a bunch of white people on this planet trying to figure out, for better or for worse, what can they do with themselves right now, because either they've, I don't know how, just woken up to the fact that there's racism, or they're, dealing with their guilt and, just whatever the things that they're having to face right now. And I guess I have a question about what true allyship or true kind of movement would feel like to you both. And I'm sure, it would be different, but I think it's important, if you don't mind answering that question, I think it would be really important for our audience out there who is kind of dealing with trying to figure out what can I do and how can I be a better ally and just a better citizen.
I think, most of my clientele are like female, young professional females that work in these, corporate companies. I think bringing up these uncomfortable questions and uncomfortable conversations to these C-level positions. There's not a lot of Black and brown people in these C-level positions. They don't really understand, how to even market to these individuals, understand where we're coming from. I think that conversation needs to be started. They need to bring Black and brown people into those conversations and really break down these racial biases that people don't really think they have, and bring them out and really ask them situations that they have been biased and stories, and they need to make these individuals uncomfortable. And I think if you're working in one of those, like, we're going to have a conversation with ClassPass, with their whole staff there. 90% of their employees are white females.
Right.
Why are there no Black and brown people at the table,
right.
at the C-level position? Why nobody's up there? We need to, and they admitted they're doing something wrong, which I 110% respect. But how do we change that? How do we start, going to different hiring practices, not throwing those resumes with, Michael Brown's, because his last name is Brown, because his last name is Rodriguez. You're throwing it in the trash, and you're going into, Lindsay White's resume and be like, oh, she has a higher education. You know what I mean? I feel like we need to really look at that, and that's reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Coss raised a great point, excellent point. And in addition to that, I think what is important to run parallel is for me, It's making sure that I'm setting the example, speaking out about one humanity. One humanity is important to me because I think there's a shift that happens when we began. To me, that's not a pie in the sky. It's not. But we have to lead. It's if there's a pie in the sky related to that comment, it is because we are saying it and not being it. And so for me, it's to say it and become and be and then lead with it. I want to be the leading example of one humanity, and that it slowly but surely it can erode or erase some of the hate, some of the racism, not all of it. Remember, this isn't a one button push or a one magic pill take. If that was the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yeah. But I really have examined. One of the things that I did, Guru Jagat, while is I studied these issues. I didn't just pop out 10 ooh wee, let me get on this world stage and start talking about these issues. I studied them. I wanted to really understand them and then use that study and that understanding and bring it to people. We really have an opportunity to embrace one humanity by leading, by being the example of that. And then little by little, it catches on. I believe an idea of one humanity produces harmony. And I believe harmony then can produce justice. I really believe that everybody around me has to embrace the one humanity. I don't allow for any derogatory talk on my team or around me. So the individual may not be a good actor or may have not behaved in the most appropriate way. Everybody around me has to understand that we cannot set that example because it eggs that idea on. And really have to be careful about that. I, again, believe one humanity is something that can help us push us closer towards having harmony with her, and then harmony producing justice, because when we embrace, and I'll say lastly, when we embrace one humanity aspect, we begin to understand more what our commonalities are opposed differences are. It's clear to see just on this screen what our differences are. Yeah. Lastly, she's white, she has long hair. You, Guru Jagat, your hair, Coss, he has a tank top on, he has a low cut on. It's easy to see our differences, and so we immediately gravitate towards those. But what is perhaps not so easy, but more so present, is our commonalities. It's true. It's true, even the racist individual, he or she don't fully realize that we have more in common than what we actually realize. And so I really be pushing this notion of one humanity, and then educating or inspiring people to not just say the word, but exemplify it, not just exemplify it, but educate people on what it actually means. Again, humanity, harmony, justice, one of the pills that we may need to take to finally get to where we're trying to go.
Thank you. Thank you all. This has just been my mind and heart expanding, and I know we're just scratching the surface, but I'm just so honored to be able to be with you all and have this conversation in a time that I feel is ripe for transformation. And I really believe in the one humanity. I believe in us, and I think we're going to make a better world, and these young people are going to demand it, and we're going to help make it happen. So thank you all so much for being here today and doing all the work that you're doing. And everybody should take class. I didn't know you guys were doing Zoom classes, but everybody has to take class with ConBody. That's so exciting. I'm so happy to hear that. And Ricky, you're about to experience some of his incredible poetry and performance art after this. But follow Ricky on TikTok and Instagram and just get involved in everything that he's up to. And let's continue to phase 2. Let's continue to phase 2.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bless you all. Yes. And I hope to see you all very soon. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Reality Riffing. These are conversations that I think are important with people who are doing great things in the world about subject matters that need to be discussed. If you enjoyed the content, the conversation, please feel free to share with your people, share with your friends and family, rate the podcast below, and also subscribe. Welcome to the Rama Festival. We're very honored to bring another amazing weekend of conversations about things we think are.
I mean, I'm an environmentalist. I need to be seen having a comment on something like this.
Experiences that will enliven you and give you all sorts of clarity and direction and enjoyment of your life. And also just the community that is really gathering globally all over the world that we're so touched by. So welcome, let's have some fun.